When I heard my granddaughter laugh that morning, it wasn't the sound that hurt me, it was what followed. "Can you believe it?" she said, her voice bright with the kind of laughter only the young have, light and thoughtless. "That's my grandmother. She works in the cafeteria now." I was standing behind the counter, my hands wrapped around a stack of lunch trays still damp from rinsing. I looked up just in time to see her glance toward me, her friends gathered around her like petals around a flower. They weren't cruel, not really. Just young, unthinking, the way I once was, too. She turned away before our eyes met, but I saw the flush of embarrassment in her cheeks. And in that moment, I wasn't angry. I was just quiet inside. Quiet in the way a lake is still after someone throws a stone. You can't see the ripples right away, but they're there, spreading slowly through the water of you. My name is Margaret Avery, though most people these days just call me Mrs. Avery or Margie if they remember me from years back. I turned 70 last spring, though I don't say that number out loud too often. It feels like a secret I carry between my bones and the mirror. For most of my life, I was an English teacher, then a college lecturer, then, for a brief and shining while, something more. I wrote a book once. Just one. It wasn't famous, not really, but it meant something to a few people. It was called The Language of Small Things. I used to joke that it was the story of my life, quiet, overlooked, but full of meaning if you paused long enough to listen. But that was a long time ago, before the years rolled over me like waves, washing away the parts of me that felt sharp and necessary. My husband passed first. Then my daughter, Claire, my only child, grew distant, swallowed by her own life, her own marriage, her own motherhood. And so, when I found myself alone in the small house at the edge of town, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years: start over. It wasn't about money, though the pension never stretched quite as far as it should have. It was about purpose, about feeling useful again. So when I saw the notice on the school district's website, part-time cafeteria aide, Westfield High, I smiled. That was Emily's school. My granddaughter. 16, brilliant, sharp-tongued, and with that restless energy that always reminded me of her mother at that age. I told myself it would be nice to be near her, even if she didn't really want me near. The interview was brief. A kind woman named Denise from the cafeteria staff looked over my form, then looked back up at me with polite surprise. "You used to teach here, didn't you?" she asked. "I did," I said with a smile. "A long time ago. In another life, it feels like." She chuckled. "Well, you're overqualified, but if you don't mind rolling up your sleeves, we can use another pair of hands." And that was how it began. My new routine. The hairnet. The plastic gloves. The faint smell of detergent that never seemed to wash off my hands. Every morning, I'd arrive before the first bell, the sky still blue-gray and trembling with dawn. I'd watch the students trickle in, faces lit by their phones or their own conversations, never noticing the older woman unloading boxes near the service door. I didn't mind. There's a strange kind of peace in being invisible. But that day, the day she laughed, something in me shifted. Maybe it was the way the words echoed after she said them. Maybe it was the way I saw myself through her eyes for the first time, old, small, wearing an apron and a hairnet instead of standing at a lectern in a tailored suit. I thought about walking out. About never coming back. But when the lunch rush ended and the noise faded, I found myself cleaning the counter, humming softly. The same old habit, turning pain into rhythm, rhythm into calm. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea gone cold and thought about how much the world changes around you while you're busy trying to survive. The laptop in the corner blinked with unread emails, mostly junk, a few old friends asking how retirement was treating me. Retirement. Such a gentle word for something that feels so hollow. I never quite retired, not in my heart. The next morning, I went back. And that was when things began to change, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, like winter thawing into spring. There's something about working in a school that humbles you. You see everything, the shy smiles, the hidden cruelties, the moments of kindness that slip by unnoticed. I began to learn the names of the students who came through the line every day. The boy who always asked for extra carrots because his mom told him to eat healthy. The girl who whispered, "Thank you," like it cost her something. The tall one who never looked up, his eyes always fixed on the tray. Sometimes, I caught glimpses of Emily. She never spoke to me. Not in front of her friends. But every so often, when she passed alone, she'd nod, barely, almost imperceptibly. I held onto those nods like they were precious things. Because they were. Weeks passed. The leaves turned gold, then brown, then scattered across the courtyard like pieces of old paper. Winter came early that year, sharp and unkind. I started wearing thicker sweaters beneath my uniform. My hands ached from the cold, but there was a warmth in my chest I couldn't quite name. Purpose, maybe. One Friday afternoon, as the students filed out after lunch, I heard a small voice near the end of the line. "Mrs. Avery, right?" I looked up. It wasn't Emily, it was one of her classmates, a boy I recognized vaguely. "Yes?" He smiled nervously. You're the one who wrote The Language of Small Things, aren't you?" I blinked. It had been so many years since anyone said that title aloud. Yes, I said slowly. "How did you?" "My mom had it," he said, his voice quick and shy. "She said it helped her get through a really bad time." I thought it was amazing. He walked off before I could say anything else. But that night, I sat at my desk and cried, not out of sadness, but out of the strange, fragile joy of being remembered. The next Monday, I saw Emily again. She was laughing with her friends, her long hair swinging, her smile bright. I wondered if she remembered that I once wrote words that mattered. That I once stood before rooms of students who listened, really listened. But maybe that wasn't her job to remember. Maybe that was mine. Still, the world has a quiet way of circling back to truth when you least expect it. It happened 3 weeks later. Emily had a history project due, something about influential women in education. I knew only because I overheard her complaining to her friends about it. "It's so boring," she'd said. "Who even cares about old teachers and writers?" I had to smile at that. Life has such a gentle sense of irony sometimes. A few days later, as I was shelving trays after lunch, I heard my name whispered near the doorway. "Grandma?" I turned. Emily stood there, her cheeks flushed, her eyes wide in a way I hadn't seen since she was little. She was holding something, a book, worn and yellowed with age. "My book." She didn't speak right away. For a few seconds, we just looked at each other, her face pale with surprise, mine probably unreadable beneath the hum of the dishwashers and the smell of disinfectant. Then she held up the book like it was something fragile. You wrote this?" I took off my gloves, my fingers trembling slightly. "Yes, sweetheart. A long time ago. I found it in the library," she said softly, stepping closer. I was looking for sources for my project, and there was this essay, about how language can heal, how small things matter. The teacher said the writer's name out loud, and I thought, no, it couldn't be. But then I saw the photo on the back. "You look younger, but it's you." There was a silence that filled the whole room, bigger than both of us. The kind of silence that holds everything unsaid, shame, wonder, and something like love. I didn't know, she said, her voice small. Mom never told me. I smiled faintly. Your mother doesn't talk much about those years. We drifted apart for a while. Why? She asked. I hesitated, my eyes falling to the counter I had just wiped clean. Because sometimes parents and children stop understanding each other. She wanted a different life than the one I built. I wanted to hold on to her when she needed to fly. And love, well, love can get tangled up in that. Emily frowned a little, like she was trying to fit the puzzle pieces together. But you were famous? A writer? I laughed gently. Not famous. Just someone who loved words. Someone who believed that stories could change how we see each other. She was quiet for a moment, then whispered, "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at her, really looked, at the streak of hair she always brushed behind her ear, the same habit her mother had. Because it didn't feel important anymore. I didn't want to be someone you were proud of because of what I used to do. I wanted to be someone you could love, even if all I did was hand out lunch trays. She stared at me for a long moment, and then her chin trembled just slightly. I'm sorry, she whispered. For laughing. I reached out and touched her cheek, my hand trembling a little from the weight of that moment. You don't have to be sorry, Emily. You were being young. I was young once too, and I remember how easy it is to forget that the people around us have entire lives before we meet them. She smiled through her tears then, small and trembling. I want to read your book, she said. I nodded. You should. It's not about me, though. It's about finding meaning in quiet places. About how sometimes the most important things aren't seen until they're gone. She left the cafeteria with the book tucked under her arm. I watched her go, my heart swelling with something I hadn't felt in a long time, not pride, exactly, but peace. That evening, I sat by the window as the light faded, thinking of her reading those words, the ones I'd written when I still believed that understanding could save us all. Maybe it still could. The next few weeks passed differently. She began stopping by more often, sometimes under the pretense of helping in the cafeteria, sometimes just to talk. She'd ask questions about my life before, about what it was like to teach at the university, about how it felt to write something that lasted longer than I thought it would. And slowly, the space between us, the quiet years of misunderstanding and distance, began to shrink. One day, she brought her mother. Claire stood in the doorway, looking smaller than I remembered, though she'd never admit it. She was holding a coffee cup and wearing that same guarded expression she'd had since her father's death, as though if she let herself soften, the grief would spill out again. Mom, she said quietly, Emily told me what she found. I nodded. I suppose it was time she knew. I didn't mean to hide it, Claire said. It just felt like a different life. I didn't think it mattered anymore. I smiled, gentle and tired. We all think that sometimes. But stories don't stop mattering just because we stop telling them. There was a pause, the kind that sits between people who love each other but have forgotten how to say it out loud. Then Claire stepped forward and took my hand. I'm glad you're here, she said. And just like that, something healed. Not all at once, not perfectly, but enough. Later that spring, the school hosted an assembly celebrating women in education. Emily had nominated me for it without telling me. When they called my name, I stood at the back, unsure whether to move. Then she was there beside me, tugging my hand gently. Come on, Grandma, she whispered. They're waiting for you. The applause was soft at first, polite, then warm. I walked to the stage, my heart trembling, my eyes catching the faces of students and teachers, some who knew, some who didn't. The principal handed me a small plaque that read "Lifetime of Dedication to Learning and Compassion." I didn't give a speech, just smiled and said, "Thank you for letting me still be part of your world." When it was over, Emily hugged me tightly, right there in front of everyone. "You're amazing," she whispered. "No," I said quietly, "just old enough to know what matters." Now, when I look back, I don't remember the laughter that hurt. I remember what came after, the rediscovery, the forgiveness, the way love can return in softer forms than you expect. Sometimes, I still go to the school. I still help out, though they offered me a small honorarium now. I still wipe down the same counters, hum the same songs. And every once in a while, I see a student holding my old book, or a teacher quoting a line I'd forgotten I wrote. But that's not what stays with me. What stays is Emily, walking beside me after school, her hand brushing mine as we cross the courtyard. "Grandma," she said once, her voice thoughtful, "do you ever miss being famous?" I laughed softly. "I was never famous, darling. Just remembered. And that's all any of us can hope for." She smiled, that same gentle smile her mother used to have when she was very young. "You'll always be famous to me," she said. And in that moment, with the sunlight fading across the schoolyard and the echoes of students' laughter drifting through the air, I realized something simple and quiet and true. That recognition isn't about being seen by the world. It's about being known by the ones who matter. And that, I thought, is enough.